Please welcome Kevin Parikh, Chairman and CEO of Avasant, for Future-Proofed Building Resilience and Uncertainty.
For most of human history, civilization was built from the ground up. Power, connectivity, information, all of it bounded by the earth beneath it. Then humanity looked up, and everything changed. With SpaceX, with Starlink, with a new generation of orbital technology, energy harvested from the sun, broadband reaching every human being on Earth, not owned by any nation, not controlled by any power. The system governing it all, the omnisphere, governed by the Imagination Age Accord. 12 members, one mandate, humanity first. And it worked. Hunger solved, energy unlimited, communication free. This is the Imagination Age.
We interrupt this transmission, broadcast to every screen on Earth because the world deserves to know the truth. They call it the omnisphere. They call it progress. They call it freedom. But look at what it has made of you. Technology has not liberated humanity, it has erased it. We were meant to live on this Earth, not be governed by it. In 24 hours, the omnisphere falls. That is not a threat. That is a promise. We have infiltrated the system. Through our contacts in a rogue nation, we have secured a ballistic missile. Say goodbye to the omnisphere.
The transmission was seen by every human being on Earth. An intercontinental ballistic missile aimed at the heart of the omnisphere, with the defense systems silently deactivated from within. The station had no way to protect itself. Only a human hand could restore it.
In the next 5 to 10 years, we will see discoveries that we've never seen before. And so that's the whole story. That's what's coming.
Excuse me, I have an urgent message.
I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to get back to you and reschedule our conversation, but it was very enjoyable. Thank you. Yes. Okay, thank you.
Agent Kevin, we have a critical situation. The omnisphere is collapsing. Core systems are failing across all sectors. We need you to initiate a manual override. You have a 5-hour window before total shutdown. Deploy immediately. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds. Good luck.
I accept. Ava, let's get Elon on the line. We have a launch window in 5 hours.
Launching in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ignition. Well, Ava, you're in space. What's our ETA to the space station?
ETA is 2 minutes, Kevin.
Excellent. Ava, it's coming up on radar. I see a ballistic right in front of us. I thought these were still a few minutes out. We're not going to have time to connect to the station and upload. We're going to have to take these out now.
Programming a fire solution now. You are locked.
Fox 3. Missile away. Ballistic destroyed. I have visual contact. Oh, wow. We have another one. There's one hiding right behind the other. I thought there was only supposed to be one missile. Confirmed. Ava.
I see it on the radar, Kevin. There is a ballistic missile. We are 45 seconds till contact.
Ava, can you give me a target lock on the second missile?
I can't, Kevin. It's too close.
That's okay. We're going to have to switch to manual. We don't have enough time. Okay, I see the missile. Fox 3. Firing. Eliminated. We got it. Are there any more? Are we clear, Ava?
No more missiles detected, Kevin.
That was a surprise and a close one.
Yes, Kevin. The defense systems are back online. The Omnisphere is now secure. Don't forget, you're also expected at Empowering Beyond. You have a keynote to deliver.
Excellent. Okay, let's take that re-entry window. We're on our way. Let everybody know.
You got it, Kevin.
Okay, we're on final approach. Thrusters. Landing gear down. Touchdown. We have touchdown. Ava, we cut this one really close.
Kevin, you always do.
Great job. Let's now go introduce FUTUREPROOFED.
You got it, Kevin.
This imagination age is possible. In a world run by technology, the future comes down to one thing: your choice. May 5th, 2026. It begins now. It begins with you.
Good morning, everyone. These videos, I'm getting too old for them. It's been really challenging preparing for this talk. Probably the most challenging it's been for me over the last 20 years of doing such research, providing such conversations, and the reason for it is primarily because we're entering a world where for the very first time we've introduced a technology that threatens our very humanity. And the research that we've been pulling is really showing something very dark, right? We're seeing an impact on human jobs. We're seeing an impact on the way we've lived. Our children, what will their futures be? Because this artificial intelligence technology, not just alone, but with the other technologies going along with it and those that will come in robotics. Yesterday we heard from Kaiser. What he reminded us was that if we can bring back humanity, and he spoke about it in terms of the Hippocratic Oath, right? Maybe we can get back on the right side of this. Today I'm going to talk about this challenge, but I'm going to set the stage first. You see, we built a world that is delivering outcomes, right? Think about it. Think about our contracts, the SLAs, the metrics, everything that we do in our industry. It's a KPI-driven outcome. Whether you're an engineer, you're a physician, or a doctor, there is some KPI. We've created a world where AI is the perfect solution, not humans. 70% faster on task completion, 30% lower operating costs, and up to 80% time savings. That's what AI is giving us. Sorry, get this right. If you look at these numbers, look at the last one, 300 million jobs globally. 300 million. Now, factor in the fact that out of 7.5 billion people, probably about 3 billion of them are either retired or their children, and you start seeing the tremendous impact of joblessness that this may create. When I look at this particular challenge, it reminds me of the model that I created and shared with you 2 years ago. This innovation labor model looks at the opportunity that innovations have brought through history over the last 1,000 years. We think about the cell phone, the internet, and with each major innovation, you can see here, these numbers correspond to those innovations. With each innovation, there's been a labor disruption. Labor disruption is the time that it takes for humanity to catch up to the next, reskill, figure out how we're going to make money, figure out how we're going to train ourselves and the like. And what we discovered when we first introduced this model is that with every new innovation, the time for human alignment is shrinking. And we made a prediction. At some point in the near future, we will have no time to realign. And that's where we are today. We didn't think it would come this quickly, but because of artificial intelligence and the technologies that are surrounding it, we don't have any more opportunity to realign. And that is the challenge. How do we orchestrate a soft landing? And so this is what I've been struggling with. And with all the fun of the videos and talking about, what the future will bring, the optimism, we can't forget about that human piece. So without time to adapt, what happens? Well, we saw it in the Great Depression, right? When unemployment rose to those levels, people didn't have the basics. Maslow's hierarchy tells us that if we can't feed people, if we cannot provide them with shelter and meaning in life, what happens? Social unrest. And we've seen it in recent history, haven't we? We saw the beginnings of it in COVID. We've seen it more recently, of course, in COVID, but also in the credit crisis. We've seen it in racial tensions. I personally believe we are on a track for this social unrest in the next 5 years if we do not create a soft landing for human beings. And governments are working on that. And the bright side of all of this is we will solve the grand challenges in the next 5 years. The data is showing that we will have unlimited energy opportunity. We will have opportunities to create not just new tools and solutions, but also we're going to solve food insecurity issues as well. The question is, can we get there in time? There we go. So let's talk a little bit how governments are approaching this. We dug a little bit deeper. Is this just a theory? Is there really a problem? Are we really approaching a cliff? And as we future-proof our organizations, what do we do? Well, let's take first a look at government. And what are governments doing? Well, in the United States, the perspective is we're going to grow out of any problem. There's not a lot of regulation happening today. It is very much an AI-first investment cycle because we have to beat China. That is the strategy, a beat China strategy. China, on the other hand, is taking a very different approach. We want to protect jobs. We don't want technology to take away those jobs. We're going to ensure them. We're going to require them. India's somewhere in the middle. And Europe is taking a position of job protection. And this was an interesting research because as we dug into it, we started to realize this is actually real, right? We've been talking about jobs and labor for the last 25 years. Our entire industry is based on offshoring, identifying the right resources, the right capabilities, cheaper, faster, merging platforms with human beings. That's what our expertise is, isn't it? Now we've built something that just makes it all irrelevant. Our entire industry. We're seeing it every single day. So, future-proofed means building a world where technology advances humanity too, not just replaces it. Because now we're not just talking about offshoring some work or creating a global competency center. We're talking about the health of our organizations, the health of our communities, and changing the KPIs. You see, the KPIs just can't be about speed. They can't just be about targets. They also have to be about happiness. They have to find a way to weave in the human journey into the organizational target. And that's important because at the end of the day, if we don't do that, there won't be any buyers for our services. There won't be any people to care about the differentiation between our companies. And without meaningful work, of course, societal stability cannot be sustained. 3 requirements for future-proofing. And I'm going to stop for a second because this is all really new material. I told you that this was probably the hardest presentation I've had to develop over the past 20 years. And the reason for it is because there's not a lot of data. The world is changing so fast. I mean, just this last month, we saw UAE wants out of OPEC. We've got continuous conflict. Now the US may actually become the world's largest oil supplier. Think about these changes and what they mean to supply chains. Saudi Arabia, for the first time, is saying, we don't need to trade oil in dollars. The last 25 years have been a petrodollar world, maybe last 50 years, and that's what stabilized US currency. That's why we have a reserve currency. That's why we wrote checks during COVID, $6 trillion of checks, and you know what happened? Absolutely nothing. The very pillars that stabilize the world economy today are shaking. And we're not making it any better by not having any jobs for people. So we're going through a realignment. 3 things. We must solve the issue of access to resources, and it must be unlimited and uninterrupted. Why do you think the UAE wants out of OPEC? Because they recognize that energy as a challenge for humanity will be solved, and I'm going to provide you a case study on that. So might as well monetize the oil as fast as we can. We're not going to let the Saudis control that for us anymore. Humanity first technology. We want technology and we want to make investments as organizations that put people first. So the priorities are not just the targets, but also what we achieve as human beings. And we want to focus on hyper-specialization, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means as well. All of you know I love to create new definitions of words that I make up, so here you go. So, AI is driving a requirement of exponential power increase. We all know it. And if you look at this slide, it's really, really interesting. Because with a 220% increase in data center power demand by 2030, how are we going to get the power? Well, we're going to get the power with nuclear power. No one wants to talk about it, but everybody's doing it. You know, 3 Mile Island, we thought that was dead. All of a sudden, oh, maybe it's not. Maybe we're going to bring back the nuclear power, right? We need it. Ocean-based data centers. This is a really interesting, cool one because we're generating power in the oceans. We've known we can do that. But you know what oceans do really well? Absorb carbon emissions. So it has sort of a added benefit. This is the Microsoft project, Natick. I think some of you may have heard about this one. It's wonderful, super interesting. How many of you have heard about Helion? Helion has created a platform, and let's see, I think I actually have a slide for this. I'm going to show this one. So Helion has figured out how to solve the fusion problem on Earth. 150 million degrees Celsius right here, hotter than the core of the sun. It's there, it's been built, we've seen it. And by 2028, they're going to launch the first powered city right here in the United States. This is real. This is an investment by Sam Altman and Microsoft. Now you see why the oil countries are getting a little bit nervous. Because these are the technologies that are going to drive the data centers and the power requirements of tomorrow. What about space? Many of you heard that Avasant has launched a space practice. First question I got is, why? What are we doing in space? Every one of the technology deals that will be signed today, in the next 5 years, will be out of date if it does not consider the regulatory and risk impacts associated with space. And I'll make it really simple for you. With Amazon, Google, Meta, all of them planning launches in the next 5 years, that's going to become part of your cloud. Data centers in space will be a reality. And so we have to harness this opportunity in sort of a pragmatic way. The orbital infrastructure is not just going to have data centers, but also we're going to be focused on communications. We already saw that with Starlink. How many of you followed the case study just last month where Starlink shut off the sort of illegal pirated use of their Starlink system by Russia? It was, I wouldn't say pirated, but there was some bootlegging going on. They were able to get a hold of some terminals, and they were using the Starlink platform to communicate. And ultimately, they realized that they had not subscribers, so I think they were shut down. And it had an immediate impact on the battlefield. Now, I'm not taking sides or taking a position on that particular conflict, but it goes to show how important these communications are. SpaceX filed with the FCC to launch, yes, 1 million data center satellites. 1 million. StarCloud, their plans are even more interesting in some ways. They're building new types of technologies to plug and play data centers in space. It's a lights out data center, right? So you throw it up and you plug it in like a Lego block. We're enabling 4 and 5G in space and the moon. All real stuff. And a future-proofed infrastructure must be one which has a converged energy, resources, and technology basis. And all of these companies that you know are planning this future now. President John F. Kennedy launched a race to the moon that defined a generation. Today, the world is racing to a new challenge, a new moonshot, and that is in space, energy, and rare earth resources. Today, China controls 90% of those rare earth resources which are used for semiconductors, defense systems, missiles, radars. There has to be another plan. Secondly, humanity first technology. What does that mean? We need to build an AI that advances humans. When I think about this one, it probably stresses me out the most. And I'll tell you why. Because when I think about my life, as many of you think about your life, you think about it not as milestones achieved, but you think about the journey. And I oftentimes think about my time at university, especially since I have two daughters that are in the midst of all of that. And it was never the achievement of the grade or the achievement of the graduation. I don't even remember going through graduation. I vaguely remember that my parents were there. But what I remember is studying late in the library with my friends. I remember going out for a drink and a beer afterwards and contemplating all the great things we were going to do under the stars, debating and arguing the future of the world. That's the journey. Where in our contracts do we have KPIs for that? Obviously, AI is going to win if we set a stage that does not include human creativity, that does not include human dreaming. Of course, the Gen Zers are tired. They have high anxiety. They don't want to go to work. Or if they do, somebody pushes them around too much, they just leave. Because they are feeling this gap. What else do we care about? Human longevity. We want to live longer. But I've recognized recently it's not just because I want to live longer and you want to live longer. I know you're very good at it. You're working hard on this. But we have a responsibility. When COVID knocked out the entire baby boomer generation, but not all of them, but most of them ended up retiring. They took the opportunity. They had great 401k plans. They had a fantastic retirement. They took it. They had Social Security still paying, right? Why should I go back to work? It advanced most of our generation into a position where we were running things. But is this a world that we're ready to give back to our children? We're going to have to work a little longer. We have energy systems falling apart in the United States. We have wildfires. We have private sector energy systems in Texas that, just very recently, right? We had some incremental bad weather and hundreds of people died. First world country, right? We have left our children with an infrastructure that they will not even know how to fix because they are learning about social media and communications and all other fun stuff. So I say that somewhat tongue-in-cheek, and I'm being a little bit flippant, but the reality of it is we have to fix all of those things in our generation. And the great news is, I think the technology is going to get us there. The third thing is, about the human journey, is we have to value human creativity. And if we build those KPIs in, one of the most frustrating things for me is when I'm watching some news or some information, and by the way, I don't like Instagram, but I very recently started looking at it because I realized that I have to understand how this works. And I see that, like all these people on there, we don't know if they're fake, or if they're real, if they're, we have no idea. So we have to find a way to validate that. I don't know if we need a validation seal. This is a real human. I'd go for that. I'd want to see that. Humanity first. What else does it mean? Well, we know that there's a significant labor disruption happening right now. So how do we bridge this, right? How do we create value for humans? Well, I am a big proponent of licensed professions. And I've said this many times. What's a licensed profession? A licensed profession is where you have to sign your name. When you have to sign your name on something, whether you're a professional engineer or a doctor writing a prescription or a lawyer signing a pleading, or if you're a licensed contractor, you know, an electrician, a plumber, when you have to sign your name, a human, then that protects that job. And so I'm a big fan of these, of licensed professions, and I think we have to encourage our children to move in that direction. We have to focus on how to increase human productivity when we work with AI. I have a big challenge in my company, just like all of you have in yours. I have an aging population of experts, people that have seen everything, been there, done that. And now it's much easier to go to Claude to get my output rather than going and training somebody on how to do it. We have to force training and knowledge transfer at a global level. And that's going to enhance relationships. I don't know if you're seeing it in your organizations. We have a bunch of people over 50 and a bunch of people in their 20s. Where did everybody in the middle go? But this is our opportunity, right, to mentor them. And with that, we'll build long-term societal value, and I believe we'll get a soft landing, right? Not only are governments trying to engineer a soft landing, not only are we racing to solve the grand challenges, but we also have to do what we need to do in our companies and invest in our people. The JP Morgan case study is a fantastic case study, and I really appreciate it, and I learned about it for the first time, actually, when I was at Harvard at a YPO event. And this particular case study is very interesting for all of us because financial services is a regulated industry, correct? And as AI started to permeate in to this regulated industry, JP Morgan Chase was faced with the challenge, how do we shut it down? Because we're licensed financial professionals. What happens if we start using this technology and it is not used in the correct way? So the first thing they did is they shut down the use of any kinds of artificial intelligence in the organization. And then they wrote a check for $2 billion to build a proprietary AI platform. But there was another requirement. Not only were we going to make that kind of investment, but we were going to create value in the 250,000 people that we had in the organization, and we were not going to let them go, but we were going to make sure that this technology enhanced their jobs, the recommendations they gave to their clients, and they created a process for how it was used. It's a fantastic case study. They were the first to do it. Nobody even talks about it. It's amazing. You can look it up. It's a tremendous investment. Nobody's made that kind of investment since. But it's showing in success. Humanity first, we have to invest in health and human longevity. How many of you know that Amazon, Google, and Microsoft all have a health platform? Did you know that? You can Google it. You can ask it questions about your health. You know, just upload all your information and all your health records. It's okay. You're going to be fine. You're going to live longer and maybe denied insurance. But it's interesting, right? The convergence. I'm talking about this convergence, and as I start talking about it, hopefully you're kind of clicking and saying, oh yeah, this is really converging. It's not just about longevity, it's about energy, it's about health, it's about all these things converging. Drug discovery as well. We're on the verge of expecting human life expectancy to go to 125 years. Well, if we're going to live that long, right, Bharat, we better live good. We better live well. Okay. Hyperspecialization. This gets to the heart of our industry. And with all the global challenges that we're facing in shifting supply chains, You know, one country is a friend, now they're an enemy. How do we future-proof our organizations to make sure that, gosh, you know, if we're put too much in India, can we shift to Mexico? We saw in all my past presentations, we made predictions about how we were going to be moving manufacturing out of China and moving it into India and other countries. Well, we saw all that. That's all happening now, and it's happening with a tremendous speed. But how do we handle the human element of hyper-specialization? Last year, when I met with all of you, I told you that globalization was dead. And that was kind of a big deal, right? Because globalization is what we built our success on, the information highway. We utilized it to build global centers of excellence and the like. We used it to offshore. But I think about how powerful that recognition was in light of how I started. I have memories of my parents writing letters because it was $1 a minute to call back home to India. I was born in the United States. They were immigrants 60 years ago. Writing letters on blue paper, right? This telepaper or whatever it was that we used for sending out transmissions. And now we're in a place where we have this instant gratifying communication. And so what I loved about the last 25 years is we could hire anywhere, we could employ anywhere, we could bring people from anywhere. And we created these fantastic delivery hubs. And I made a prediction that, you know what, eventually all these places with low-cost salaries and whatnot will rise. They'll have to rise because we're creating equilibrium in labor markets. But today, in future-proofing, it's much more challenging. So how are we fixing this problem? Well, we moved from delivery hubs to process efficiency centers to global business services, transformation engines, and now these what we are calling GCCs, these hubs for innovation and excellence. Let me tell you what they are and why they're important. A global competency center can be built by any company with a globalization architecture that takes into consideration their tariff strategy, their data strategy, their talent geography, and their risk geography. So today, when we think about this, we might have a physical center in India, but we have people supporting that from all over the world, the United States, Europe, and elsewhere. We might have supply chain redundancy through Mexico or through Malaysia, and we can still have that center over there. So when I think about what Avasant did years ago is we created a global company where people lived all over the world and worked together as a single business unit. That's what this is. The GCCs of today are global business units that kind of exist everywhere and nowhere. And that is where the future-proofing resiliency comes. Does that make sense? It means we can shift. We can shift from one geo to another geo. Our people live in the cloud along with the data and everything else. It's truly an exciting model. And I think that that's how we're going to build resiliency. It's not a bi-directional thing where we're offshoring to India. We're building a broad execution strategy that includes go-to-market, front office, generating revenue, employing people, investing in technology. Here's another part about it that I just love. I start asking myself questions, well, what about those satellites in space that are now, that my cloud and my data is in? Well, I'm a healthcare organization. Better be geosynchronous and located above the United States, because if that thing is spinning around, maybe spinning around over China, is my data over China? Is my data somewhere it's not supposed to be? What if I'm in an aerospace and defense company and I've got some secret stuff up there and somebody sends over, like I did when I flew up to the satellite, and connects up and starts downloading my secret stuff. Who's going to stop them? Right? You start asking all these questions and you realize, okay, where's the redundancy going to be? How are we going to solve these issues? And wow, it's a lot of work for human beings to do. That's exciting. Hyperspecialization is also found in the FDE pod, the forward deployed engineer model, right? And this is how we blend people and technology to create these new models where hyperspecialization drives human work. Some regulation will be required too. I'm a lawyer, and I think it's so interesting. I don't practice much anymore, but it is interesting how the courts are coming down and saying, okay, well, if you use AI and we find out in your pleadings and the documents that you submit, you're going to lose your bar. Well, maybe that's going to be required too, but it doesn't mean we don't use the technology. It means that we need to have the right human overlay. So the boundaries between industries are collapsing in this new world. Google and Microsoft are now energy companies generating power. ExxonMobil is a sustainability company. Everything is collapsing onto itself. Everybody is a space company, right? That's the future. And that converged market means when we think about our managed services models, when we think about how we execute and deliver, right, in the old way, how is that going to change in this new world? We are a little bit running out of time because it's a race to get to those converged solutions quickly enough before we really start experiencing the pain of job loss. And of course, the discovery of new work. That takes time. But because the challenges of this hyper AI growth, it's having such an immediate impact, we're experiencing a tremendous disruption. So I'm hopeful that we're going to get there, that these converged technologies are going to emerge in the next 2 years or less, and it looks like they will, so that we can create a new cycle of jobs and opportunities for people. Because the challenge ahead is not a technological one. I think we're going to get there. I feel more confident than ever. I'm a student of technology and innovation, what I've spent most of the last 30 years doing. It's going to happen. The investments are there. They're working. But let's not forget about us. Let's make sure that those KPIs exist around longevity, creativity, and the human thought and journey. And if we do, I think we'll just get through. Thank you.